Hear this truth from above. I am here to tell you a secret that will change your life today. A secret about how you've already won a battle you didn't even know you were fighting. This isn't just talk. It's a deep insight into why powerful forces are panicking right now. This message is critical, so don't even think about skipping a single word. Welcome, those chosen by the Lord. Listen up, because what's coming next is not motivation. It's an open secret. In history, sometimes whole systems don't fall apart because someone fought them. Someone quietly walked away and showed that they were never needed in the first place, so they fell apart. There were no riots, fights, or loud noises. When one person breaks the rules stop working all of a sudden. This is something that most people don't know. Participation is the only thing that keeps big operations going, whether they are social, business, political, or psychological. In other words, not intelligence, strength, or force. Taking part. When enough people stop believing, following along, or putting up with it, even the strongest structure starts to shake like a cheap plastic chair that is missing a leg. That's exactly what took place. You didn't break the door. You didn't get an army together. You didn't even say what you were going to do. You just got too big for what was trying to control you. And that small, quiet change set off a huge chain of events. Some people began to notice. They saw how you moved in a new way, how you stopped being angry, how you stopped needing approval all the time, how you stopped letting fear take over your life. They laughed at first. After that, they copied you. One by one, they ran away, almost carelessly, as if to say, "Wet, we can just leave. That's it. No permission slip." And it was true. Many people mentally clock out of a system that depends on their obedience. And the people in charge of this system don't throw a party. They freak out because someone who isn't impressed by control is the most confusing thing there is. You didn't break the rules. You didn't scream. You didn't write 20 angry posts every day. You were free before. For them, that was worse than any protest ever could be. It's almost funny to think about. They planned a complicated operation with strategies, pressure tactics, manipulation, and fear campaigns, but all it took was for you to say, "Nah, I'm fine." It's like spending years making a maze and then seeing someone walk right over the wall like it's nothing. That's the power. They are now very angry. Not because you hurt them, but because you didn't care about them anymore. We're going to show you in this video how you shattered their whole business without even trying. The quiet ways your growth has set people free who you've never met. And the reason why the thing that makes you unique is also what brought down a system that thought it was safe. Don't let go. When you know the truth, you will never again see your journey or their anger the same way. The first thing is that you didn't attack their system. You took away its use. A lot of people believe that loud resistance leads to change. They believe that if something is trying to control you, you should fight, argue, protest, or even go to war with it. Systems expect you to do that. They are ready for noise. They are ready for rebels. You still give something attention, energy, and importance when you fight it directly, so they're ready for anger. Even though you played on their field, they couldn't get ready for what you did. You quit playing altogether. Their rules didn't bother you. You didn't try to show them they were wrong. You didn't waste time trying to take the building apart one brick at a time. It was like you just left it and made your own way of life. That one move was more powerful than any fight ever could be. Systems don't stay strong on their own. They live off of participation. Your job only holds you back if you think you can't quit. You are only controlled by trends if you feel like you have to follow them. Fear can only keep you in line if you keep responding to it. Their power over you went away as soon as you didn't need what they were selling: approval, validation, fake urgency, and the "you must do this or else" threat. That's what made you dangerous to them. You showed that their hold wasn't real. Some people saw you. They saw that you weren't as stressed out as they were. You were after different things. You weren't scared about the same threats. And slowly, a quiet thought began to spread. I might be able to live without this too if they can. And that's how things go wrong. Not by explosions, but by getting out of the way. The number of people leaving goes from 1 to 10 to thousands to millions. There was no drama or news. The seats where loyal followers used to sit were empty. That's the most painful part for them. Your plan didn't fail when you fought it. You also didn't win the fight. You did something worse. You made it not matter, and things that people no longer need fall apart the fastest. Everything I have covered across this channel is now in one place. The prayers, the teachings, the daily blessings, it is all inside the Daily Miracle Manual. Link in the description. Please know that every seed you plant in this mission grows into a torch that shines in someone else's darkness. Whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our community, does not go to a channel. Your actions are supporting a divine mission to save lost souls. But more than your support, we want your presence. When you head to our community through the link in the description or the pinned comment, you aren't just visiting a site, you are entering a community of like-minded believers. This is a sanctuary where you can post your prayer requests, lift up the burdens of others, and engage in daily discussions with a family that speaks the language of faith. Whether you are joining one of our membership tiers for deeper study, sowing a seed of faith, or simply joining our daily morning prayers, you are helping us build a global altar of worship. Heaven moves through willing voices, but it grows through a community that stands together. Each gift you give acts as living water for those in our community seeking healing and hope. Give, and it will be given to you, is the promise that sustains our shared mission. I invite you now to step out of the shadows and into this circle of prayer. Come with purpose, join the conversation, and plant your seed in fertile ground. Let's open the heavens together. Release your seed today, join our community, and see what God brings back into your life. Second, your calm showed how fake their sense of urgency was all the time. Everyone was taught to live like the clock was a knife at their back. Quickly, make up your mind now. Quickly act. Do not miss it. You're not on time. You are not on time. Time is running out. It felt like an emergency all the time. People don't think when they're in a hurry. They just act. That's the whole secret. Lack of time doesn't mean inefficiency. It has to do with power. Because when you're in a hurry, you don't think about anything. Any voice that sounds louder will be obeyed. That's how they kept people locked up. There is always noise and pressure, and it's always now or never. Then you showed up and did something that was almost rude to their whole setup. You moved more slowly, not being lazy or careless, just moving slowly and steadily. You stopped treating each message like it was an emergency. You stopped running like crazy whenever someone said, This is your last chance. You stopped letting due dates, opinions, and false expectations make you panic. And people who don't want to rush are the most confusing to manipulators. You can't be steed if you can't be rushed. You were thinking while everyone else was running around. While they were feeling upset, you were watching. Even though they were tired, you stayed strong. That was a big difference. People began to notice something odd, even though you never said anything about it. You never said anything about it. You didn't feel worried all the time. You didn't act like your life was falling apart every 5 minutes, and it hit them slowly. Perhaps the stress wasn't really there to begin with. It's possible that most of these emergencies were fake. The fear might have been just for show. That's when the spell breaks, because people can only feel rushed when they think they don't have time to breathe. You told them there was. Life doesn't go off the rails if you take a break. That nothing bad happens when you think about what you want to do. That most threats go away when you stop giving them power. Their whole plan depended on keeping people's minds and hearts racing. People could finally hear the truth when the noise died down because of how calm you were. They were always yelling, but there was never a fire. The third thing is that you taught people how to think without their permission. It's not because they're weak that most people are controlled. There is power over them because they have been taught to doubt their own thoughts. People always have someone telling them, "Don't think too much. Just follow the instructions. Trust the experts. Stay in line. This is just how things are." After years of hearing that, they stop questioning everything. They don't think because they can't, but because they think they shouldn't. So they hire someone else to make decisions for them. They wait for someone else to tell them what is safe, right, true, and possible. Authority turns into a crutch. It has to be right if a system says it is. It must be smart if a lot of people do it. Then you broke that pattern in a quiet way. That's not the case with speeches or debates. You just began to say what you were thinking out loud. People were afraid to question the thing did. You checked information twice instead of taking it at face value. You said, "That doesn't make sense." When you thought something wasn't right, you changed your mind when new information came in. No, you didn't agree just to fit in. People thought you were stubborn or hard to get along with at first. But as time went on, they realized something that made them feel bad. A lot of what you said was true. You got it not because you were psychic or special, but because you used your own brain instead of borrowing someone else's. That's when it hit them. That's something else they could do. They were free to look into something without permission, to trust their own reasoning. They didn't need a title, a badge, or a group of people behind them. They were able to question. They might not agree. They could take a moment to think. When someone starts to think for themselves, control starts to slip. Because manipulation only works on minds that are already set. You didn't start a rebellion when you pause and say, "Hold on, let me look into this." You made it a habit. That habit spread. 10 people who can think clearly turn into 1. 10 becomes a lot of money. All of a sudden, people aren't believing stories anymore. They are looking at them. Any system based on blind agreement would have a terrible time with that. You just believed in your own mind, but you let everyone else trust theirs too, even though you didn't know it. Fourth, you made following orders look bad. After a while, going with the crowd seemed normal, safe, and smart. It was taught that the mature thing to do was to keep your head down, agree with everything, and never make waves. It was smart to dress up obedience as wisdom. Conformity was praised like it was a strength. People who asked too many questions were called difficult, dramatic, or problematic. A lot of people learned to thin out. When they didn't agree, they nodded. They agreed to follow rules that didn't make sense. They laughed at jokes that weren't funny to them. They went after goals they didn't really want. Not because they believed in it, but because it made them feel safer to fit in than to be alone. In a quiet way, you changed everything when you showed up and did something simple. Don't act like that anymore. Not everyone did not agree with you. You didn't act rebellious to get attention. You stopped going along with things that didn't make sense. You stopped making people smile. You stopped changing your shape to make other people feel better. When something didn't feel right, you took a calm step back instead of folding. Not a lot of fuss or words, just a quiet no. In some way, that quiet independence hurt more than any amount of loud defiance. People didn't see chaos when they looked at you. They could see confidence. You were not breaking down. They were told you would be lonely and unhappy, but you weren't. You were steady, clear, and proud of yourself. At the same time, they began to notice how they were acting, how fast they said yes when they really meant no, how easily they did what they were told. They didn't question it. How often did they lie to fit in just to be accepted? At that moment, obedience stopped looking like a good thing to do. It looked not strong, it looked like fear. It looked like they were asking for permission to be there. It hurt to realize that. Everything changes when following the rules starts to feel embarrassing instead of safe. We need to stop cheering for blind loyalty. They start to like backbone. People start to respect the person who stands out more than the group that does what they say. You didn't make them feel bad. It did in your case. You made people realize they were giving up their freedom without hurting. When people stop acting small to fit in, it's the fastest way to threaten a system that controls people. Fifth, you made it through something that was meant to make you smaller and came back bigger. They thought you would break. It was their goal to make you doubt yourself and feel smaller than you really were by putting obstacles in your way and manipulating you in different ways. It was the goal of every system, plan, and strategy to make you fit into their view of reality so they could control your thoughts, time, energy, and decisions. They thought that all of their expectations, insults, and demands would finally break you. They were sure of it. They put their money on it. But this time things were different. You made it. Not by pretending, giving in, or acting like you agree. You made it through because you wouldn't let their actions tell you what your limits were. Every trick that was meant to wear you down only made you stronger. For you, every lie, trick, and attempt to control you was a chance to see how weak their defenses really were. You didn't get weaker with each challenge. It made your thoughts clearer, your instincts stronger, and your sense of who you are stronger. People also noticed as you got stronger. As people watched in silence, they realized that someone who had been through the same stresses they were worried about had not only survived, but come out stronger, more focused, and more capable. The fact that you were able to stay alive showed that the rules weren't really rules at all. They were tricks that were meant to keep everyone else small. When someone sees that, it changes the way they see things for good. They don't understand. They never meant for anyone to go through what you did and come out on top. The system depends on breaking people's spirits in a quiet way, so they will follow the noticing. You did something different. You changed what was supposed to happen. They are now very angry because your existence goes against the story they worked so hard to make up. You showed that stress doesn't have to make you size down. You don't have to be quiet because of grief. Tests don't need to hold you back. You not only made it through, but you came back bigger, stronger, and harder to hurt in ways they can't even understand or control. And that's scary for people whose power depends on keeping people small. Sixth, you dropped the need to be liked, which made you impossible to manage. The need to be liked is what keeps most systems of control going, whether they are in businesses, social groups, or even bigger, more manipulative structures. Approval turns into a leash. Thank yous are the chains. You can steer someone who wants praise. People can be pushed if they are afraid of being turned down. It's quiet and hard to see, but it works incredibly well. You can always count on people who need to be validated. To stay liked, they will bend, not agree, and follow the rules. That's how power moves around quietly, so no one notices. Then you did something strange. You stopped caring not because you were cocky or cold, but because you knew your worth wasn't based on praise, acceptance, or applause. You stopped doing shows for other people. You stopped looking for approval. They stopped telling you that you were allowed to exist, and that one change ruined their whole plan. If someone doesn't need to be liked, they can act in strange ways. You can't make them feel bad. You can't make them feel bad. They can't be swayed by fear, praise, or flattery. Because you don't act like you need to fit in, nothing they throw at you hits you right on. You are no longer tied to anyone else by invisible strings. That freedom is clear. It's seen by many. They can feel it. Suddenly, your calm independence makes them think about how much they really want to follow the rules. It's getting clearer that their tricks don't work the more they try to pull you back. Their threats don't work. Their nice words don't seem sincere. It becomes clear that they are manipulating you. It's like holding up a mirror that no one wants to look in when you watch as someone go through any problems or ties. A mirror that shows how dependent, weak, and scared they are. There was nothing you had to prove. You didn't need to fight or yell. You didn't need them anymore. Because of that one quiet choice, no one could touch you. That's what scares any system that depends on people obeying and depending on it. The illusion of control falls apart as soon as someone steps off the leash. It was impossible to guess what would happen with you, steer you, or hold you back. They can't figure out how strong your independence is now. That's why they are so angry. Seventh, you showed how much of society is based on fear. Most people live their lives on the edge of boundaries they can't see. They don't choose based on what they want or what makes sense. They choose based on what they think will happen if they don't follow the rules. We make choices every day about our jobs, our relationships, social norms, and even our jobs out of fear. There is fear of being judged, failing, being turned down, and the unknown. That fear isn't always loud. It's soft, quiet, and hard to see. That's what makes it work so well. Not having bars in the cage means people don't even know they're stuck. The cage is made up of thoughts, habits, and expectations. The pattern was broken when you came. You stopped letting fear control what you did. Some people wanted to do the things you were doing, but were afraid to take a chance on. People were too polite to tell you the truth, but you did. You left places where no one else would have dared to go. What you did seemed brave, but it wasn't because you were careless. It was because you were honest. When people act that way, it makes them afraid like a virus. As people watch, an idea comes to them all of a sudden. I might not need to be scared either. People act without fear more quickly than they think. People who are not busy notice the change in energy. They feel like someone is taking control of their life without asking, waiting, or confirming that they are safe. And over time, that quiet courage spreads. People start to try out their newfound freedom. They hesitate to say yes because they feel like they have to. People who have blindly followed rules for years start to question them. They understand that the prisons they saw were mostly made up. Any system that is based on control will fail in this case. Systems work best when people stay small, careful, and obedient. When fear starts to fade, people stop obeying, can't be manipulated, and have less of an effect. There was nothing loud or revolutionary about what you did. It showed in a subtle way what happens when you stop letting fear control your decisions. And the fact that it's so subtle is what makes it so sad. There was more to your escape than that. A lot of people learned from you that their own fear was what was trapping them. And now they're also coming out. That's why they're so mad. They built a quiet cage, but it is being taken apart from the inside out. 8th, your presence changed their story about what success looks like. They worked on a story about success for years. They told everyone that it meant working hard all the time, always having to prove yourself, always trying to get approval, and being completely worn out in ways that made the system look impressive and necessary. For them, stress meant getting things done, sacrifice meant having value, and constant hustle meant being legitimate. That story was more than just a message. It was a trick. People had to work harder to get approval that they would never fully get. They had to depend on the system to give them permission to live, rest, and figure out what they were worth. Then you got there and quietly took it apart. You didn't do what was asked of you. You didn't copy the fast pace. You didn't spend years trying to prove yourself based on someone else's rules. You instead made your life fit with what was important to you. You paid attention to depth instead of noise, clarity instead of chaos, and progress over approval. You picked things that made sense to you. Everyone had been taught to follow the rules, even if they didn't make sense. Even though no one thought it would work, it did. It was seen by many. They saw that you were doing well without having to fight all the time. They saw you get things done, grow, and live a smooth life in ways that the system said were impossible. In a dangerous way, if someone shows that being successful doesn't require acting, going above and beyond, or pleading for approval, it calls the whole made-up model into question. Things they thought were going to happen, like stress, sacrifice, and an endless search, now seem like choices. Now what they taught as the only way seems like a choice. Just the fact that you were there proved that their idea of success wasn't universal or necessary. Though it's quiet, it's strong. You changed the rules without anyone noticing by living in a different way. People started to camp out their own paths, asking themselves why they were doing what they were doing. They realized that they could change what success meant to them. Systems that are based on control are scared of this change because when the definition of success changes, authority loses some of its power. You didn't have to talk to anyone directly. There was no need for you to criticize or challenge. You just lived your life the way, and that life broke the story that kept millions of people stuck in the false idea of how things should be. 9. You made it easier to spot people who are trying to trick. Most people don't understand how much of life is built on sneaky tricks. Systems that change people's behavior depend on them not realizing they're being affected from the way information is given to the tone of someone's voice to the small social pressures and expectations that are always there. It's not force or fear that works. It's being invisible. No one will fight it if they can't see it. So, operations that try to trick people do well in the shadows. They don't have to be obvious. All they need is for people to keep following along, reacting automatically, and trusting the script without question. Then you showed up and did something they didn't expect. You began to see patterns. You began to look at actions, question motives, and tell the difference between real intentions and fake pressure. You didn't get angry. You didn't act dramatic. You just looked and responded in a clear way. People around you started to pay attention. They realized that the things that seemed normal at first, the quiet pressure, the hidden plans, and the unspoken expectations that made them do what was asked, were actually forms of manipulation. It also loses its power once people figure it out. It quickly spread. It only takes one person to notice the tricks to make a wave. Others start to doubt meetings, conversations, and even casual interactions. It's clear to them that there are holes, hidden agendas, and emotional hooks. Things that used to feel like they had to be done now feel like they don't have to be done. It feels like you can choose not to obey, not like you have to. When enough people understand this, the system starts to quietly fall apart from the inside out. Being aware didn't just keep you safe. Without words, it taught others. You showed that the rules weren't impossible to break. The pressure wasn't unavoidable, and they didn't have full control. People began to think for themselves and see things they had not seen before. That's why the people in charge of the operation are so angry. They know they can deal with opposition, but not with enlightenment spreading in a quiet way. You didn't fight them. You just opened your eyes. And manipulation stops working complete once people can see the truth. When you show what isn't there, the system starts to shake from its own delusions. 10th, you refuse to be the victim they made you out to be. It is important for people to stay small in most systems, whether they are personal, social, or institutional. They want people who are reliable, obedient, and reactive, and who can be emotionally controlled. Putting people in a role, usually the victim role, is one of the best ways to keep that power over them. It is easier to control someone who has been called weak, broken, or dependent. Others start to feel sorry for them, angry at them, or compelled to help them. And the person in that role has to follow a script they didn't write. This is great for systems. They depend on people staying in the box they made and acting the way they think people should. You're not going to fit in that box. The label didn't bother you. You didn't give a reason. You didn't let it steer your next steps. They thought you would stay angry, bitter, or broken. You did what you needed to do to heal, grow, and move on. By refusing to be a victim, You took away the power they thought they had over you. They were ready for someone to give up, beg, get angry, fight, or keep complaining. You came up stronger, calmer, and more clear instead. This refusal is dangerous for systems that try to control people because they know exactly who will say no. They can be controlled, swayed, manipulated, and shamed. But someone who doesn't want to play that part is hard to predict. You decide what the rules are. You chose for yourself. You were in charge of your own story. You were no longer bounded by anything they could throw at you, and the people around you saw. People who watch know that suffering doesn't have to make someone who they are. A person's life doesn't have to be controlled by trauma, manipulation, or pressure. Others were inspired by seeing you refuse the victim role, and all of a sudden, the operation looked weaker. To win, you didn't have to fight anyone. You just refused to play the part they gave you, which made you untouchable in ways they couldn't have imagined. That's why they're so angry. One thing they didn't plan for was what would happen. You're not going to be their pawn. You changed people's expectations in a quiet way that can't be undone. That can't be taken away by anything they do. Number 11. Freedom doesn't need permission, and you proved it. Most people wait their whole lives. They are waiting for the right chance, the right time, someone to agree with their choices, or someone to tell them they are ready. People are taught that freedom isn't absolute and needs to be approved of by someone in power. Most people don't question the invisible strings that come with their jobs, relationships, and even personal choices because they've been taught to. Then you showed up and broke that pattern in a quiet way. You stopped being patient. You stopped expecting other people to let you live your life the way you want to. You didn't wait for a system, a crowd, or a person in charge to say it was okay. You just did it. You moved. You picked, and your life was in line with your own truth. Just that is revolutionary, because it goes against everything that keeps people small and dependent. You didn't do anything loud or showy. You didn't have to tell anyone or show proof that you were free. You just went through it. What happened next was really strange. Life wasn't exploding around you. People began to notice. There was growth when doors opened and chances showed up. That's when the subtle but devastating realization hit, without anyone letting it happen. Freedom has never come from other people. It wasn't true that people had been waiting their whole lives for permission. Any system that is based on control will fail in this case. Systems depend on people being dependent and waiting for permission to move forward. As soon as someone shows that freedom is available without asking, the whole system is put at risk. Suddenly, millions of people start to doubt the rules they thought could not be broken, and the group that they thought was in charge loses its hold. There was no need to start a war. You didn't have to push anyone. You showed that waiting is not necessary, that freedom is built in, and that the only person who holds the keys is the brave one who acts. That simple truth scares systems that make money off of compliance because people can't it back once they see it. Just by moving forward, you change the game. Number 12. Your honesty made them look like fake people. A lot of people are taught how to do things. From a young age, society rewards people who put on masks, like smiles even when they're mad, polite nods when they don't agree, and prepared answers that help them fit in. It's important for systems, manipulative networks, and controlling operations to work well. They depend on people pretending, acting, and showing a side of themselves that fits well with the rules and expectations that are meant to keep things under control. Masks are predictable, easy to control, and simple to change. Authenticity, on the other hand, is hard to predict, makes people feel bad, and spreads quickly. Then you just showed up as yourself. You didn't do well enough to impress. You didn't do what you did to fit in or get attention. You spoke and moved in a way that was true to you, even if it wasn't what everyone thought you should do. You didn't lie, exaggerate, or have a secret agenda in the way you carried yourself. It was just honest, and that quiet reality made everyone else's efforts to perform stand out right away. Things that seemed normal at first looked overdone, forced, or weak all of a sudden. Being with you was like a mirror that showed the truth. A lot of what people were showing was just an elaborate trick. Some people noticed. They began to think about how they were acting and how other people were acting. It dawned on them how hard it was to act like someone they weren't. And performance starts to fall apart when authenticity walks in. And the more you stuck to who you were, it became clear which identities were based on fear, expectation, or manipulation. This is terrible for systems that depend on control and compliance. Performance can be planned for, guided, and changed. Being real can't. You made the shiny facades look cheap and fragile just by being yourself. You didn't attack anyone's masks, but you quietly took away their power. People around you started to value being real over looking good, having substance over image, and telling the truth over making things easier. Being real didn't just make you impossible to touch. Everyone else had to admit that all the pretenses were pointless. And for a manipulative system, nothing is worse than realizing that its carefully constructed illusions don't work when sunt go along with them. 13. You didn't hire anyone. People naturally did what you did. Active persuasion is what most systems depend on. They make plans for rallies, speeches, campaigns, and other ways to get people to join, follow, or choose a side. They depend on hard work, pressure, advertising, and carefully crafted stories. That's what everyone thinks will happen. You get people to do something, and then it's annoyingly loud, planned, and tiring. Then you did something they didn't expect. Not a single person was persuaded by you. It wasn't a crowd puller. You didn't make campaigns or argue or debate. You just lived your life the way you thought it should be lived. You worked toward your goals, stuck to your values, and did what you thought was right. You worked on getting better, getting clear, and becoming independent. That quiet consistency made something much stronger than any effort to hire new people. Set a good example. Some people noticed. They started to watch how you dealt with problems, how you reacted to stress, and how you went through life without giving in to fear or peer pressure. They saw how calm you were, how focused you were, how well you did, and how you wouldn't do anything for anyone else. And an amazing thing took place. They began to act like you. They didn't need a speech, an appeal, or a pitch to get people to join. Your example was strong enough. The way they wanted to live became the way you lived. Systems that depend on manipulation are scared of this kind of influence. The hiring process is controlled. To influence by example is natural. It spreads naturally, quietly, and can't be stopped. People don't copy because they have to. They copy because they think it's better. It loses control when people leave. Not because they want to fight, but because they choose not to. You didn't have to push anyone. You didn't have to fight to get attention or like. The people around you just followed you because they saw something they wanted. This is how evolutions take place, quietly, without making noise, having leaders or fighting. Your life was the proof, the way, and the spark. That's why the people who tried to control everything are so angry. They worked out to be strong, but they couldn't get inspired. You didn't even try to change the game. 14. You didn't use force to stop their work. You made it not matter. Most people think that the only way to break down a system is to fight it, make it public, or confront it with aggression. They expect that. Wars, revolutions, and uprisings are loud, dirty, and easy to see, and systems are ready for that to happen. They know how to handle attacks, fights, chaos, and protests. They can fight back against force, scare off rebels, and even get back on their feet after short problems. That being said, what you did was much worse. There was no need to fight. You didn't have to shout, campaign, or get things together. You just didn't follow their rules. You stopped taking part. You wouldn't do the things, have the fears, or meet the expectations that the system needed to stay in power. You didn't have to use their influence. You took away the meaning of their rules. Once enough people knew about it, their operation didn't just run into trouble. It stopped being important. Any system that is based on control will fail in this case. Systems work best when people follow the rules and believe in them. Take those off. The building falls down quietly and can't be seen, but it's over for good. Followers who aren't interested, empty chairs, and people who are thinking for themselves. All of those things weaken power faster than any fight ever could. It's not exciting, but it can't be stunning, and that's exactly what you did. Because you wouldn't follow their rules, you showed everyone that the system wasn't needed. It was shown that people could live, grow, and do well without it. You paid more attention to freedom, independence, and getting in line with yourself than to. And influence means nothing when people don't see a reason to follow, manipulate, or obey. They are very angry, but not because they were attacked. They are very angry that their operation, which was based on careful planning and oversight, doesn't matter anymore. You didn't break it. You grew out of it. No one needed to be convinced. You just showed them that life is possible, better, and more sustainable outside of their business. That kind of collapse can't be fixed, argued with, or built back up. You didn't try to change the rules. You made it not matter, and there's no way to stop that. Everything we've learned today points to one truth that can't be argued with. They are mad at you not because you fought or argued with them, or even tried to blow the whistle on them. That's not even close to it. They are angry, scared, and rushing because you became untouchable in ways they didn't see coming. You didn't follow their rules. You didn't do anything about their pressure. You didn't beg for praise or attention. You just lived your life in a way that was clear, brave, and always in line with your own truth. When you refused to be a victim, stopped trying to get other people to like you, moved with calm instead of panic, and thought for yourself, each quiet choice you made chipped away at the foundation they built. And as these choices added up, something very strange took place. Millions of people saw the cracks, started to question the rules, and found their own freedom. You didn't have to make them change. You didn't have to lead movements or set up fights. You were the proof, the living example, and the spark that made their whole operation fall, because it was pointless. This is the most powerful part. What you did will always be there. Systems can get back on track after chaos, fear, or noise. The complete guide, every daily prayer, every spiritual tool, everything I've put together to help you grow your faith is down in the description. It's called the Daily Miracle Manual. Now, stay right here with me because as this awakening grows inside you, know that helping with this mission is not a joke. It is a sign from God. You can support this work through the link in the description or the pinned comment, whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our community. By doing so, you become part of Jesus' plan to save souls who are still stuck in fog. Every seed turns into light that fights against darkness. If you water others, you will be watered yourself, Jesus says. This is not history. It is a living promise about your future. Come into this moment with faith and a plan. What God has already planned for your life can be unlocked through your giving. Before we get to the end of this powerful story, let's reflect on this deep truthy. You did not find this message by accident. This is a divine appointment meant specifically for you. You are being invited into a protected, faith-filled community at the link in the description and pinned comment, a place where divine abundance is not just a hope, but a promise built on the Word. By heading to the site right now, you are unlocking access to a sacred community of like-minded believers. When you join our membership tiers, you gain immediate entry to powerful content, daily devotions, and divine insights that are hidden from the world. This is your chance to enter a sanctuary where you will receive spiritual guidance, unwavering support on our prayer wall, and speedy progress toward your destiny. Do not let this moment of destiny pass you by. Your breakthrough is waiting. Join our inner circle through the exclusive link in the description. This is how you guarantee you never miss the personalized messages and spiritual warfare tools meant to elevate your life. If you feel called to deepen your connection, the link is waiting for you in both the pinned comment and the description. For those who want to amplify this work and carry the light home, you can find our guided ebooks and Bibles in the pinned comment. Whether you join as a member or sow a seed through our resources, your presence and energy change the world. Take the step, your abundance awaits.